The secret beneath her skirt. Chapter 1. Whispers in Oko Village. Oko Village was no different from any other quiet settlement dotting the green valleys of eastern Africa. Mud houses clustered together, smoke curling from cooking fires, and gossip louder than the crow of any rooster. But there was one name that sent shivers through the hearts of the bravest men, Nairai. Tall, graceful, and with eyes that held storms, Nairai was the woman every mother warned her sons about. Not because she was wicked, no, she was far from it. But something about her presence made men uneasy. They said her beauty was dangerous. Her walk could make a lion tremble. And above all, it was whispered, there is something strange that lies between her thighs. Of course, no one could prove it. No man ever lasted with her long enough to say. They would fall for her charms, only to flee weeks later, haunted and mute, as if they'd seen something otherworldly. The women of the village mocked them. Weak boys. They'd laugh. But the fear in their husbands' eyes remained. Nairai, however, lived a quiet life at the edge of the village. Her late mother had been a traditional healer, and Nairai had inherited not just her remedies but her secrets too. She brewed herbs for sick children, helped women conceive, and whispered prayers for rain during dry spells. Her kindness was never repaid with love, only suspicion. One day, a stranger arrived in Oko. He was tall, with skin like burnt copper and a voice that flowed like river water. His name was Bekizitha, a traveler from the south, searching for knowledge of the old ways. The elders welcomed him. The girls giggled behind palm leaves. But when he asked about Nairai, the air grew thick. That one, the chief's advisor warned, is not for you. Many have tried. None returned whole. Bekizitha chuckled. I'm not here for women. I'm here to learn. Yet curiosity is a stubborn seed, and it had already rooted in his mind. Later that week, he met Nairai by the river. She was washing herbs, the water lapping gently at her ankles. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world held its breath. You're the traveler, she said, without turning. Her voice was softer than he expected. And you're the woman they say hides a curse between her thighs, he replied boldly. She looked up. No anger. No shock. Just a knowing smile. Then stay far away, traveler. Curses tend to cling to the curious. But Bekizitha didn't leave. He returned each day, helping her gather roots, asking questions, listening to stories. Nairai, for once, let someone close. She even laughed. It was a sound like a chime caught in wind. And then, one night under a red moon, he touched her. The next morning, the village was silent. Bekizitha walked through it as if in a trance, eyes hollow, lips sealed. The men watched him with fear. The women clutched their amulets. And Nairai. She sat on her porch, grinding herbs, her face unreadable. No one knew what he had seen. But the whispers returned louder than ever. If only they realized what lies in her private places, they muttered. The secret beneath her skirt. Whispers in Oko Village. Oko Village was no different from any other quiet settlement dotting the green valleys of eastern Africa. Mud houses clustered together, smoke curling from cooking fires, and gossip louder than the crow of any rooster. But there was one name that sent shivers through the hearts of the bravest men, Nairai. Tall, graceful, and with eyes that held storms, Nairai was the woman every mother warned her sons about. Not because she was wicked, no, she was far from it. But something about her presence made men uneasy. They said her beauty was dangerous. Her walk could make a lion tremble. And above all, it was whispered, there is something strange that lies between her thighs. Of course, no one could prove it. No man ever lasted with her long enough to say. They would fall for her charms, only to flee weeks later, haunted and mute, as if they'd seen something otherworldly. The women of the village mocked them. Weak boys. They'd laugh. But the fear in their husbands' eyes remained. Nairai, however, lived a quiet life at the edge of the village. Her late mother had been a traditional healer, and Nairai had inherited not just her remedies but her secrets too. She brewed herbs for sick children, helped women conceive, and whispered prayers for rain during dry spells. Her kindness was never repaid with love, only suspicion. One day, a stranger arrived in Oko. He was tall, with skin like burnt copper and a voice that flowed like river water. His name was Bekizitha, a traveler from the south, searching for knowledge of the old ways. The elders welcomed him. The girls giggled behind palm leaves. But when he asked about Nairai, the air grew thick. That one, the chief's advisor warned, is not for you. Many have tried. None returned whole. Bekizitha chuckled. I'm not here for women. I'm here to learn. Yet curiosity is a stubborn seed, and it had already rooted in his mind. Later that week, he met Nairai by the river. She was washing herbs, the water lapping gently at her ankles. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the world held its breath. You're the traveler, she said, without turning. Her voice was softer than he expected. And you're the woman they say hides a curse between her thighs, he replied boldly. She looked up. No anger. No shock. Just a knowing smile. Then stay far away, traveler. Curses tend to cling to the curious. But Bekizitha didn't leave. He returned each day, helping her gather roots, asking questions, listening to stories. Nairai, for once, let someone close. She even laughed. It was a sound like a chime caught in wind. And then, one night under a red moon, he touched her. The next morning, the village was silent. Bekizitha walked through it as if in a trance, eyes hollow, lips sealed. The men watched him with fear. The women clutched their amulets. And Nairai. She sat on her porch, grinding herbs, her face unreadable. No one knew what he had seen. But the whispers returned louder than ever. If only they realized what lies in her private places, they muttered. And that was only the beginning. The quiet after the storm. The days that followed Bekizitha's strange departure were filled with tension. Oko village, usually so vibrant with life, now felt like a place trapped between two worlds. The market was quieter, the children no longer ran through the streets laughing, and the men stayed within the shadows, murmuring to each other. Bekizitha's presence lingered, but Nairai remained undisturbed. She continued her work with a quiet grace, tending to the sick and the elderly, as though nothing had changed. Yet in the hearts of the villagers, her silence spoke volumes. What had happened when they met by the river? What had Bekizitha seen? The fear gnawed at them. Nairai, though, remained an enigma. Her reputation was both feared and revered. She was the woman who had seen the depths of the spirit world, the keeper of ancient secrets, but also the one who could send any man fleeing with a single glance. No one dared to confront her. No one, except for one. Lindiwei, the village's youngest healer, had always admired Nairai from a distance. She had heard the stories of the woman's power, of the men who vanished into her presence, but Lindiwei had never truly believed them. To her, Nairai was simply a woman who carried the weight of too many secrets. And secrets, Lindiwei knew, could be unraveled. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the horizon, Lindiwei approached Nairai's small hut at the edge of the village. Her heart pounded in her chest, but her resolve was firm. She had questions, and tonight, she would get answers. Nairai was sitting outside, humming softly as she crushed a handful of dried leaves in a stone mortar. She glanced up as Lindiwe approached, her eyes reflecting a deep, knowing wisdom. "You've come," Nairai said, her voice calm and steady. "I wondered when you would." Lindiwe hesitated, unsure of how to start. "I've heard things about you, Nairai," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Things that frighten the men of this village. But I don't understand. What is it about you? What is it that makes them run?" Nairai did not respond immediately. She continued to grind the herbs in her mortar, her movements measured, almost ritualistic. Finally, she spoke, her voice low. "They run because they do not understand," she said, her eyes fixed on the ground. "And when they do not understand, they fear." Lindiwe sat down beside her, curious but cautious. "But what is it they fear?" she asked. Nairai's gaze lifted to meet Lindy's, her eyes dark pools of mystery. "They fear the power that lies hidden within me, within all women. It is not something that can be explained, only felt. And it is not something that they can control." Lindiwe frowned, trying to make sense of Nairai's words. "But why do you allow them to fear you? Why not tell them the truth?" Nairai's lips curled into a faint, sad smile. "Because some truths are too dangerous to be spoken aloud. They are meant to be understood, not explained." The wind picked up, rustling the leaves in the trees around them. The air felt charged, as if something ancient and powerful was stirring just beneath the surface. Lindiwe felt a shiver run down her spine. Is that what Bekizitha saw? Is that what made him leave? Nairai paused, her expression unreadable. "He saw only a glimpse," she said softly. "But some glimpses are enough to break a man." Lindiwe sat back, stunned by the weight of Nairai's words. There was so much she didn't understand, so much that was still hidden from her. But one thing was clear, Nairai was not just a woman. She was a force, something beyond the comprehension of any man in Oko village. For the first time, Lindiwe realized that the fear men had of Nairai was not just about her beauty or her power, it was about something deeper. Something that resided within her, something that, if unleashed, could change everything. And as the night grew darker, Lindiwe knew that she was standing at the edge of something vast and unknowable. The secrets of Nairai were not just her own. They were the secrets of the world itself, waiting to be. The forbidden knowledge. The days that followed Lindy's conversation with Nairai were filled with a quiet restlessness. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had just touched the edge of something extraordinary, something ancient and forbidden. She had spent years learning the ways of herbal medicine, but Nairai's words about power and secrets left her wondering if there was more to the world than she had ever imagined. Lindiwe found herself waking at night, her thoughts swirling around the enigmatic healer. What was this hidden power that terrified men so deeply? What had Bekizitha seen that drove him away? And why did Nairai seem so at peace with it all? As the full moon rose over the village, Lindiwe made a decision. She would seek answers. She could not live with the questions lingering in her mind, and if Nairai would not reveal the full truth, then Lindiwe would discover it herself. One evening, after the village had fallen into silence, Lindiwe slipped away from her small hut and made her way to Nairai's home at the edge of the village. She had no idea what she was looking for, but the urge to understand burned within her. As she approached, she noticed the flickering of a single candlelight in the window. She hesitated, but then, with a determined breath, she knocked softly on the door. Nairai opened it almost immediately, as if she had been waiting. Her expression was calm, but her eyes betrayed a knowing look. "You came," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I expected you." Lindy Wei stepped inside without a word. The hut was dimly lit by the glow of the candle. The air was heavy with the scent of herbs and incense, and the walls were adorned with ancient symbols and paintings, some of which Lindy Wei recognized, others she did not. "Sit," Nairai said, gesturing to a mat on the floor. "You seek the truth. But the truth, like the herbs I grind, can be bitter when taken in excess." Lindy Wei lowered herself to the mat, her heart racing. "I need to understand," she said. "I need to know why men fear you so. What is this power that lies within you?" Nairai sat across from her, the candlelight casting shadows on her face. For a moment, she said nothing. Then, slowly, she spoke. "There is a power in every woman, Lindy Wei. A power that resides deep within her body, in the places that men often dare not explore. It is a power of creation, of life and death. But it is also a power of destruction, a force that can break a man if he is not strong enough to face it." Lindy Wei felt a chill run through her. But why are men so afraid? Why did they run? Nairai's eyes grew distant, as if she were recalling something long buried. "They fear what they do not understand. In every woman's body, there is a hidden strength, a force that can shape the world. It is ancient, and it cannot be tamed. Men are afraid because they cannot control it. They fear that if they get too close, they will be consumed by it." Lindy Wei listened intently, her mind racing to grasp the enormity of Nairai's words. "But you," she began hesitantly. "You seem at peace with it. You don't run." Nairai smiled faintly. "I have learned to live with it, to understand it. I have accepted that the power within me is a part of who I am. But most men, they cannot bear the weight of it. They are not strong enough to face the truth." The room seemed to grow heavier, the air thick with unspoken truths. Lindy's mind whirled as she considered what Nairai had said. Was this what Bekizitha had seen? Had he discovered the secret of Nairai's power and fled because he could not handle it? Nairai stood up slowly, her movements graceful and deliberate. She walked over to a small chest in the corner of the room and opened it. From within, she pulled out a small, intricately carved box. She placed it on the floor between them and opened it. Inside the box lay a collection of ancient artifacts, small stones, crystals, and intricately designed amulets. But what caught Lindy's attention was the object at the center of the box, a smooth, polished stone, glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. "This," Nairai said, her voice barely above a whisper, "is the source of the power. It is not just a stone. It is a part of something much greater, something that connects all women to the earth, to the stars, and to the forces that shape our world." Lindy Wei reached out, her fingers trembling as she touched the stone. The moment she made contact, a surge of energy shot through her, and she gasped, pulling her hand back. Nairai watched her, her expression unreadable. "Now you understand," she said softly. "The power is not just in the body. It is in the spirit. It is in the earth, in the air, and in the stars above. And it lies within every woman, waiting to be awakened." Lindy's mind raced, overwhelmed by the depth of what she had just learned. She had thought she was seeking knowledge, but what she had uncovered was something far more profound. Something that could change everything. As she left Nairai's hut that night, she knew that her life would never be the same. The power that men feared, the power that had made Bekizitha leave, was now within her reach. And soon, she would have to decide whether to embrace it, or fear it, like the others. The awakening. The days after Lindy's visit to Nairai were a blur. Her thoughts were consumed with the power she had glimpsed, the energy that surged through her when she touched the stone. It wasn't just a feeling of strength, it was a sense of connection, an understanding that she was part of something far larger than herself. But the question lingered, why had Nairai shown her this secret? What did it mean for Lindiwe? Each day, Lindiwe found herself drawn to the stone, which Nairai had entrusted her to keep. It sat in the corner of her hut, glowing softly in the dark, almost as if it were alive. She couldn't help but touch it again and again, each time feeling that same electric pulse rush through her veins. But with the awakening of this power came something else, a shift in the air around her. She noticed the way the men in the village began to look at her differently. The curious glances, the sideways stares, the awkward silences. It was as if they knew something had changed, something they couldn't quite place, but it made them uneasy. One evening, as she walked through the village, she noticed a group of young men gathered by the fire, laughing and talking. When they saw her approach, they fell silent. Their eyes followed her, and there was an odd tension in the air. It was the same feeling she had seen in the men who had fled from Nairai, the fear of something they couldn't understand. Lindiwe stopped in her tracks, her heart pounding. She knew she had to face this fear. She couldn't live in the shadows of it. She had to embrace whatever was awakening inside her. With a deep breath, she approached the group. "Why do you stare at me?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. "Do you not recognize me anymore?" The men looked at each other, exchanging uncomfortable glances. Finally, one of them, a young man named Saifo, stepped forward. "Lindiwe," he said, his voice hesitant. "There's something different about you. Something unsettling." Lindy's pulse quickened. This was what she had feared. They could feel it. The power. It was radiating from her, even though she hadn't fully understood it herself. "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "It's like there's something inside you, something we can't see. But we can feel," Saifo said, his eyes wide with a mix of awe and fear. You've changed." Lindiwe took a step closer to the fire, her gaze fixed on Saifo. "I am the same as I was," she said, though she knew it wasn't entirely true. "But maybe I have learned something. Something that scares you." There was a long silence, broken only by the crackling of the fire. The men exchanged nervous glances. Saifo took a step back, clearly uncomfortable. "We don't know what it is, Lindiwe. But it's not like anything we've ever felt before." Lindiwe could see the fear in their eyes. It wasn't just fear of the unknown, it was fear of her, of what she might become. It was the same fear that had made the men of the village flee from Nairai, the same fear that kept them from understanding the true strength of the women in their midst. "You don't need to fear me," Lindiwe said softly, trying to steady her voice. "I am still the same person I always was. But what I carry within me, it is part of who I am. I will not hide from it." The men looked at each other, their expressions a mixture of confusion and fear. Finally, Saifo spoke again. "We don't know what to make of it. But we will watch you, Lindiwe. We will watch to see what happens next." As Lindiwe walked away from the group, she felt the weight of their words on her shoulders. They were watching her now, waiting for her to either rise or fall. And she knew that this was only the beginning. The next day, Lindiwe went to see Nairai again. She needed guidance, a clearer understanding of what was happening to her. She could feel the power inside her growing, swirling like a storm that was just waiting to be unleashed. But she didn't know how to control it. She didn't know what would happen if she let it go. Nairai was waiting for her, as if she had known Lindiwe would come. The older woman was sitting outside her hut, grinding herbs, the soft hum of her voice filling the space around her. "You've come," Nairai said, without looking up. "I knew you would." Lindiwe sat down beside her, her heart heavy with questions. "Nairai, I can feel it. The power. It's growing inside me. And I don't know what to do with it." Nairai looked up then, her eyes piercing into Lindy's soul. "You must learn to listen to it, Lindiwe. You must learn to understand it. It is not something to fear, it is a gift. But gifts are dangerous if they are not handled with care. But how do I control it?" Lindiwe asked desperately. "What if I can't? What if it takes over?" Nairai placed a gentle hand on Lindy's arm. "You must trust yourself. Trust that you can control it, that you can harness it. But remember, it is not just your power, it is the power of all women. And if you allow it to consume you, it will destroy you." Lindiwe nodded, trying to calm her racing heart. "I don't want to be consumed. I want to understand it." "You will," Nairai said, her voice soft but firm. "But first, you must understand yourself. You must accept who you are and what you are capable of." Lindiwe stood up, feeling a surge of determination wash over her. She was ready. She would learn to control the power inside her. She would face the fear of the men, the fear that had always kept her at the edge of their lives. She would learn to embrace the strength that lay hidden within her, and in doing so, she would change everything. As she walked away from Nairai's hut, Lindiwe knew that she was no longer just a healer. She was something more. She was a force that could not be ignored. And soon, the village would understand what they had feared. The test of will. The days that followed Lindy's conversation with Nairai were filled with a sense of purpose but also uncertainty. She could feel the power within her like a constant presence, a force that hummed beneath her skin, urging her to act, to speak, to do something, but what? She had no answers yet, only the growing weight of the knowledge she had gained. The village continued its quiet existence, but a shift was palpable. The men no longer whispered in the shadows, now, they openly avoided her, their faces unreadable. The women, on the other hand, were more curious than ever. They watched her closely, but unlike the men, they seemed to sense something different. Something that wasn't so much fear as it was awe. One afternoon, while Lindiwe was tending to her garden, she noticed a group of women gathering near the well. They were speaking in low voices, their eyes darting toward her as she worked. The village's gossip always traveled fast, but this felt different. It wasn't the usual idle chatter, it was something more deliberate. Lindiwe finished watering the plants and slowly walked toward the well. As she approached, the women fell silent. A few looked away, while others simply stood there, waiting for her to speak. "Is something wrong?" Lindiwe asked, her voice soft but steady. One of the older women, Mma Tebaho, who had always been kind to her, stepped forward. "We need to talk, Lindiwe," she said, her voice grave. "There are things happening in this village, things that we can't ignore any longer." Lindiwe frowned, sensing the tension in the air. "What things?" "It's about the power you have," Mma Tebaho continued, her eyes searching Lindy's face. "The way the men look at you. The way you seem different. We have seen it before. We know what it is, and we need to know if you are ready." Lindy's heart skipped a beat. "Ready for what?" "The test," Mma Tebaho said quietly. "Every woman who has carried this power has had to face it. The test of will. It's what separates those who can control it from those who cannot." Lindy's pulse quickened. She had heard rumors of such things, but she had never believed them to be true. A test. What kind of test? Was she ready for it? How could she know? What is the test? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mma Tebaho looked around, as if ensuring no one was listening. You must face the darkness within yourself, the part of you that seeks to dominate, to control. You must prove that you can harness this power without allowing it to consume you. It is not enough to understand it. You must prove that you are stronger than the power itself. The weight of the words settled over Lindiwe like a heavy cloak. She had thought she was ready, but now she wasn't so sure. She had no idea what this test would entail, but she knew one thing for certain: if she failed, the consequences would be dire. How do I take the test? Lindiwe asked, her voice trembling slightly. Mma Tebaho placed a hand on Lindy's shoulder. Tonight, at the sacred clearing, we will be there to witness, to guide you if necessary. But it is your test. You must face it alone. Lindiwe nodded slowly, her mind spinning. She could feel the pull of the power inside her, as if it were calling to her, urging her to prove her strength. But what if she failed? What if the power overtook her? The fear gnawed at her, but she pushed it aside. She had no choice but to face it. That night, as the full moon rose over Oko village, Lindiwe made her way to the sacred clearing. It was a place that had always been used for ceremonies, where the villagers prayed for rain, for good harvests, for protection from evil spirits. It was here that the elders had always performed their most important rituals. As Lindiwe stepped into the clearing, she felt a chill in the air. The silence was absolute, the only sound the rustling of the trees in the breeze. The women of the village were already there, standing in a circle, their faces unreadable in the moonlight. Mma Tebaho was at the front, waiting for Lindiwe. You are ready? Mma Tebaho asked, her voice steady but filled with expectation. Lindiwe took a deep breath and nodded. I am ready. Mma Tebaho raised her hands, signaling for the other women to step back. Then begin. Lindiwe closed her eyes, feeling the cool night air on her skin, the earth beneath her feet. She focused on her breathing, trying to center herself. She had to be calm, focused, in control. But the power within her was restless, swirling like a storm just beneath the surface. Remember, Mma Tebaho's voice echoed in her mind, this is your test. The power will try to consume you, to make you weak. You must not let it. Lindiwe opened her eyes and raised her hands, the moonlight reflecting off her skin. She felt the power surge within her, but she did not resist it. Instead, she allowed it to flow through her, feeling its strength, its raw energy. It was a force of nature, ancient and untamed. But she was not afraid. The ground beneath her feet seemed to tremble as the power inside her grew stronger, more intense. The wind whipped around her, and the air grew thick with energy. The women watching from the circle gasped, sensing the power that was radiating from her. Lindiwe closed her eyes again, focusing all her energy on one thought: control. She would not be consumed. She would not allow the power to take her. The storm inside her raged, but Lindiwe held firm. Slowly, the energy began to calm, the winds dying down, the earth stilling beneath her feet. She felt the power settle, like a wild river that had finally found its course. When she opened her eyes, the clearing was quiet again. The women stood in awe, their eyes wide with disbelief. Mma Tebaho stepped forward, her face filled with respect. You have passed the test, Lindiwe, she said, her voice filled with admiration. You are ready. Lindy's heart raced, but a sense of calm washed over her. She had faced the darkness within her and emerged victorious. But the journey was far from over. There was still much to learn, still much to control. But for the first time, Lindiwei felt certain of one thing: she could handle the power. She was no longer just a healer. She was a force to be reckoned with.